Chapter 1 Values and Principles of the UK. Britain is a fantastic place to live. A modern, thriving society with a long and illustrious history. Britain is a fantastic place to live. A modern, thriving society with a long and illustrious history. Our people have been at the heart of the world's political, scientific, industrial, and cultural developments. We are proud of our record of welcoming new migrants who will add to the diversity and dynamism of our national life. Applying to become a permanent resident or citizen of the UK is an important decision and commitment. You will be agreeing to accept the responsibilities which go with permanent residence and to respect the laws, values, and traditions of the UK. Good citizens are an asset to the UK. We welcome those seeking to make a positive contribution to our society. Passing the Life in the UK test is part of demonstrating that you are ready to become a permanent migrant to the UK. This e-book is designed to support you in your preparation. It will help you to integrate into society and play for a full role in your local community. It will also help ensure that you have a broad general knowledge of the culture, laws, and history of the UK. The values and principles of the UK. British society is founded on fundamental values and principles which those living in the UK should respect and support. These values are reflected in the responsibilities, rights, and privileges of being a British citizen or permanent resident of the UK. They are based on history and traditions and are protected by law, customs, and expectations. There is no place in British society for extremism or intolerance. The fundamental principles of British life include democracy, the rule of law, individual individual liberty, tolerance of those with different faiths and beliefs, participation in community life. As part of the citizenship ceremony, new citizens pledged to uphold these values. Pledge. New citizens pledge to uphold these values. The pledge is: I will give my loyalty to the United Kingdom and respect its rights and freedoms. I will uphold its democratic values. I will observe its laws faithfully and fulfill my duties and obligations as a British citizen. Following from the fundamental principles of responsibilities and freedoms which are shared by all those living in the UK and which we expect all residents to respect. If you wish to be permanent resident or citizen of the UK, you should respect and obey the law, respect the rights of others, including their rights to their own opinions, treat others with fairness, look after yourself and your family, look after the area in which you live and the environment. In return, the UK offers freedom of belief and religion, freedom of speech, freedom from unfair discrimination, a right to a fair trial, a right to join in the election of a government. Becoming a permanent resident. To apply to become a permanent resident or citizen of the UK, you will need to speak and read English, have a good understanding of life in the UK. There are currently two ways you can be tested on these requirements. Take the Live in the UK test. The questions are written in a way that requires an understanding of the English language as English, or for speakers of other languages, entry level 3. So there is no need to take a separate English language test. People here on work visas, including those on Tier 1 and Tier 2 of the points-based system, normally must pass the Live in the UK test to become permanent residents. Pass an ESOL course in English with citizenship. You will need to take this course if your standard of English is below ESOL entry level 3. The course will help you to improve your English and learn more about life in the UK. At the end of the course, you will take a test. Once you have passed one of these tests, you can make an application for permanent residence or British citizenship. The form that you have to complete and the evidence that you need to provide will depend on your personal circumstance. There is a fee for submitting an application, which is different for the various types of application. All of the forms and a list of fees can be found on the UK Border Agency website as below. From October 2014, the requirements will change. From that date, for settlement or permanent residence, you will need to pass the Live in the UK test and produce acceptable evidence of speaking and listening skills in English at B1 of the Common European Framework of Reference. This is equivalent to ESOL entry level 3. The requirements for citizenship applications may also change in the future. Further details will be published on the UK Border Agency website, and you should check the information on that website for current requirements before applying for settlement or citizenship. Taking the Live in the UK test. This ebook will help prepare you for taking the Live in the UK test. The test consists of 24 questions about important aspects of life in the UK. Questions are based on all parts of the handbook. The 24 questions will be different for each person taking the test at that test session. The Live in the UK test is usually taken in English, although special arrangements can be made if you wish to take it in Welsh or Scottish Gaelic. You can only take the test as a registered and approved Live in the UK test center. There are about 60 test centers around the UK. You can only book your test online at the below link. You should not take your test at any other establishment, as the UK Border Agency will only accept certificates from registered test centers. If you live on the Isle of Man or in the Channel Islands, there are different arrangements for taking the Live in the UK test. When booking your test, read the instructions carefully. Make sure you enter your details correctly. You will need to take some identification and proof of your address with you to the test. If you don't take this, you will not be able to take the test. how to use this ebook. Everything that you will need to know to pass the Life in the UK test is included in this ebook. The questions will be based on the whole book, including this introduction, so make sure you study the entire book thoroughly. The handbook has been written to ensure that anyone who can read English at ESOL entry level 3 or above should have no difficulty with the language. The glossary at the back of the handbook contains some key words and phrases which you might find helpful. To check that you understand both are for guidance. They will help you to identify particular things that you should understand. Just learning the things highlighted in these boxes will not be enough to pass the test. You need to make sure that you understand everything in the book. So please read the information carefully. Where to find more information? You can find out more information from the following place: the UK Border Agency website for more information about the application process and the forms you will need to complete. The Live in the UK test website for more information about the test and how to book a place to take one. Governments UK for information about ESOL courses and how to find one in your area. Check that you understand the origin of the values underlying British society, the fundamental principles of British life, the responsibilities and freedoms which come with permanent residence, the process of becoming a permanent resident or citizen. Chapter 2: What is the UK? The UK is made up of England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. The rest of Ireland is an independent country. The official name of the country is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Great Britain refers only to England, Scotland, and Wales, lost to Northern Ireland. The West Britain, British Isles, or British, however, are used in this book to refer to everyone in the UK. There are also several islands which are closely linked with the UK, but a large part of it, the Channel Islands and the Isle of Man. These have their own governments and are called crown dependencies. There are also several British overseas territories in other parts of the world, such as St. Helena and the Falkland Islands. They are also linked to the UK, but a larger part of it. The UK is governed by the Parliament sitting in Westminster. Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland also have parliaments or assemblies of their own, with devolved powers in defined areas. The countries that make up the UK: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Chapter 3: A Long and Illustrious History. Early Britain. The first people to live in Britain were hunter-gatherers in what we call the Stone Age. For much of the Stone Age, Britain was connected to the continent by a land bridge. People came and went, following the herds of deer and horses which they hunted. Britain only became permanently separated from the continent by the Channel about 10,000 years ago. The first farmers arrived in Britain about 6,000 years ago. The ancestors of these first farmers probably came from Southeast Europe. These people built houses, tombs, and monuments on the land. One of these monuments, Stonehenge, still stands in what is now the English country of Wiltshire. Stonehenge was probably a special gathering place for seasonal ceremonies. Other Stone Age sites have also survived. Scarrow on Orkney, off the north coast of Scotland, is the best preserved prehistoric village in northern Europe and has helped archaeologists to understand more about how people lived near the end of the Stone Age. Around 4,000 years ago, people learned to make bones. They called this period the Bronze Age. People lived in round houses and buried their dead in tombs called round barrows. The people of the Bronze Age were accomplished metal workers who make many beautiful objects in bronze and gold, including tools, ornaments, and weapons. The Bronze Age was followed by the Iron Age, when people learned how to make weapons and tools out of iron. People still lived in round houses, ground together into larger settlements, and sometimes defended sites called hill forts. A very impressive hill fort can still be seen today at Maiden Castle, in the English country of Dorset. Most people were farmers, craft workers, or warriors. The language they spoke was part of the Celtic language family. Similar languages were spoken across Europe in the Iron Age, and related languages are still spoken today in some parts of Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. The people of the Iron Age had a sophisticated culture and economy. They made the first coins to be minted in Britain, some inscribed with the names of Iron Age kings. This marks the beginnings of British history. The Romans. Julius Caesar led a Roman invasion of Britain in 55 BC. This was unsuccessful, and for nearly 100 years Britain remained separate from the Roman Empire. In AD 43, the Emperor Claudius led the Roman army in a new invasion. This time, there was resistance from some of the British tribes, but the Romans were successful in occupying almost all of Britain. One of the tribal leaders who fought against the Romans was Boudicca, the queen of the Ainsley in what is now Eastern England. She is still remembered today, and there is a statue of her on Westminster Bridge in London, near the House of Parliament. Areas of what is now Scotland were never conquered by the Romans, and the Emperor Hadrian built a wall in the north of England to keep out the pests. Included in the wall were a number of forts. Parts of Hadrian's Wall, including the forts of Houserath and Windolander, can still be seen. It is a popular area for walkers and is a UNESCO, United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, World Heritage Site. The Romans remained at Britain for 400 years. They built roads and public buildings, created a structure of law, and introduced new plants and animals. It was during the 3rd and 4th centuries AD that the first Christian communities began to appear in Britain. The Anglo-Saxons. The Roman army left Britain in AD 410, defended other parts of the Roman Empire, and never returned. Britain was again invaded by tribes from northern Europe, the Jews, the Angles, and the Saxons. The languages they spoke are the basics of modern-day English. Battles were fought against these invaders, but by about AD 600, Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were established in Britain. These kingdoms were mainly in what is now England. The burial place of one of the kings was at Sutton Hoo in modern Suffolk. This king was buried with treasure and armor, all placed in a ship, which was then covered by a mound of earth. Parts of the west of Britain, including much of what is now Wales and Scotland, remained free of Anglo-Saxon rule. An Anglo-Saxon helmet found at Sutton Hoo, currently on display at the British Museum. The Anglo-Saxons were lost Christians when they first came to Britain, but during this period, missionaries came to Britain to preach about Christianity. Missionaries from Ireland spread a religion on the north. The most famous of these was St. Patrick, who would become the patron saint of Ireland, and St. Columba, who founded a monastery on the island of Lannon. Off the coast of what is now Scotland, St. Augustine led missionaries from Rome who spread Christianity in the south. Saint Augustine became the first Archbishop of Canterbury. The Vikings. The Vikings came from Denmark and Norway. They first visited Britain in AD 789 to raid coastal towns and take away goods and slaves. Then they began to stay and form their own communities in the east of England and Scotland. The Anglo-Saxon kingdoms in England united under King Alfred the Great, who defeated the Vikings. Many of the Viking invaders stayed in Britain, especially in the east and north of England. In an area known as the Danelaw, many place names there, such as Dransby and Scotland, come from the Viking languages. The Viking settlers mixed with local communities and some converted to Christianity. Anglo-Saxon kings continued to rule what is now England. Anglo-Saxon kings continued to rule what is now England, except for a short period when there were Danish kings. The first of these was Claude, also called Canute. In the north, the threat of attack by Vikings had encouraged the people to unite under one king, Kenneth MacAlpin. The term Scotland began to be used to describe that country. Scotland. The term Scotland began to be used to describe that country. The Norman Conquest. In 1066, an invasion led by William, the Duke of Normandy, in what is now northern France, defeated Harold, the Saxon king of England, at the Battle of Hastings. Harold was killed in the battle. William became King of England and is known as William the Conqueror. The battle is commemorated in a great piece of embroidery known as the Bazin Tapestry, which can still be seen in France today. Commemorate. The battle is commemorated The battle is commemorated in a great piece of embroidery known as the BT, which can still be seen in France today. The Roman conquest was the last successful foreign invasion of England, and led to many changes in government and social structures in England. Norman French, the language of the new ruling class, influenced the development of the English language as we know it today. Influenced the development of the English language as we know it today. Initially, the Normans also conquered Wales, but the Welsh gradually won territory back. The Scots and the Normans fought on the border between England and Scotland. The Normans took over some land on the border, but did not invade Scotland. William sent people all over England to draw up lists of all the towns and villages. The people who lived there, who owned the land, and what animals they owned were also listed. This was called the Domesday Book. It still exists today and gives a picture of society in England just after the Norman Conquest. The Middle Ages. The period after the Norman Conquest up until about 1485 is called the Middle Ages. It was a time of almost constant war. The English kings fought with the Welsh, Scottish, and Irish noblemen for control of their lands. In Wales, the English were able to establish their rule in 1284, King Edward I of England introduced the Statute of Rutland, which annexed Wales to the Crown of England. Huge castles, including Conway and Caerleon, were built to maintain this power. By the middle of the 15th century, the last Welsh rebellions had been defeated. English laws and the English language were introduced. In Scotland, the English kings were less successful. In 1314, the Scottish, led by Robert the Bruce, defeated the English at the Battle of Bannockburn. The Scotland remained unconquered by the English. At the beginning of the Middle Ages, Ireland was an independent country. The English first went to Ireland as troops to help the Irish king and remained to build their own settlements. By 1200, the English ruled an area of Ireland known as the Pye around Dublin. Some of the important laws in other parts of Ireland accepted the authority of the English king. During the Middle Ages, the English kings also fought a number of wars abroad. Many lives took part in the Crusades, in which European Christians fought for control of the Holy Land. English kings also fought a long war with France, called the Hundred Years' War. One of the most famous battles of the Hundred Years' War was the Battle of Agincourt in 1415, where King Henry V vastly outnumbered the English army, defeated the French. The English left France in the 1450s. The Normans used the system of land ownership known as federalism. The king gave land to his lords in return for help in war. Landowners had to send certain numbers of men to serve in the army. Some peasants had their own land, but most were serfs. They had a small area of their lord's land where they could grow fruit. In return, they had to work for their lord and could not move away. The same system developed in southern Scotland. In the North of Scotland and Ireland, land was owned by members of the clans. In 1348, a disease, probably a form of plague, came to Britain. This was known as the Black Death. 1/3 of the population of England died, and a similar proportion in Scotland and Wales. This was one of the worst disasters ever to strike Britain. Following the Black Death, the smaller population means there was less land to grow cereal crops. There were labor shortages, and prisons began to demand higher wages. New social classes appeared, including owners of large areas of land, and people left the countryside to live in the towns. Growing wealth led to the development of a strong middle class. In Ireland, the Black Death killed many in the pine, and for a time, the area controlled by the English became smaller. Legal and political changes in the Middle Ages. Parliaments began to develop into the institution it is today. Its origins can be traced to the King's Council of Advisors, which included important noblemen and the leaders of the church. There were few formal limits to the king's power until 1215. In that year, King John was forced by his noblemen to agree to a number of demands. The result was a chapter of rights called the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta established the idea that even the king was subject to the law. It protected the rights of the nobility and restricted the king's power to collect tax or to make or change laws. In future, the king would lead to involve his noblemen in decisions. In England, parliaments were called for the king to consult his nobles. Particularly when the king needed to raise money, the numbers attending parliaments increased, and two separate parts, known as houses, were established. The nobility, great landowners, and bishops sat in the House of Lords, lives, who were usually smaller landowners, and wealthy people from towns and cities were elected to sit in the House of Commons. Only a small part of the population was able to join in electing the members of the Commons. A a similar parliament developed in Scotland. It had three houses. It had three houses called estates: the Lords, the Commons, and the clergy. This was also a time of development in the legal system. The principle that judges are independent of the government began to be established. In England, judges developed common law by a process of precedence. That's it, following previous decisions and traditions. In Scotland, the legal system developed slightly differently, and laws were codified. That's it, written down.